The crisp winter air stunned my cheeks as I stood outside my parents' house, staring at the elegant holiday decorations adorning the entrance. Warm light spilled from the windows, and I could hear laughter inside. The annual Morrison family holiday dinner was in full swing. I adjusted my designer blazer, took a deep breath, and reached for the door handle. "Oh good, you're here. The kitchen needs help with the appetizers," my mother said the moment I stepped inside, barely glancing up from her tablet, where she was reviewing what looked like the evening schedule. "I'm Olivia Morrison, 32, and I had just made partner at one of Boston's top law firms." But standing in my parents' foyer, I felt like I was 16 again, being dispatched to handle the dinner service while my younger sister, Madison, basked in the spotlight. "Actually, Mom, I brought the wine you asked for," I said, holding up the expensive bottles I carefully selected. "Where would you like them?" She waved vaguely toward the kitchen. "Just put them somewhere and help Agnes with the canapes. Madison will be here soon, and everything needs to be perfect." Of course it did. Madison, the golden child, was bringing her new fiancé to meet the family. The fact that I'd just achieved a milestone in my career, something I'd been trying to tell my parents about for weeks, seemed irrelevant in comparison. I made my way to the kitchen, where Agnes, our family's longtime housekeeper, was arranging appetizers on silver platters. Her face lit up when she saw me. "Miss Olivia." "Oh, thank goodness you're here. Your mother's been in quite a state all day." "When isn't she?" I smiled, setting down the wine bottles and rolling up my sleeves. "What can I help with?" As I helped Agnes arrange smoked salmon on blinis, I could hear more guests arriving. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the usual holiday crowd. A sudden burst of excitement erupted from the foyer, and I knew Madison had arrived. "My baby," Mom's voice carried through the house. "And Thomas, welcome to the family. Everyone come meet Madison's fiancé." I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel and headed toward the commotion. Madison stood in the center of an admiring circle, practically glowing in her designer dress, while a tall man with perfect teeth smiled beside her. Our mother had her arm linked through Madison's, beaming with pride. "Liv," Madison nodded when she saw me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Nice of you to help with the catering." Before I could respond, Mom started ushering everyone toward the dining room. "Dinner's ready. Everyone, find your places." The dining room was a picture of holiday perfection. The table gleamed with polished silver and crystal, elaborate centerpieces running its length. At each place setting sat an elegant name card. I walked around, looking for mine. That's when I saw it. At the far end of the table, next to the kitchen door, was a card that read "Kitchen Help" in my mother's perfect calligraphy. I stared at it, feeling my face grow hot. Across the table, directly opposite, sat a card reading "Guest of Honor, Madison." "Is something wrong, dear?" Mom appeared beside me, adjusting a flower arrangement. "My place card says Kitchen Help," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced at it dismissively. "Well, you are helping in the kitchen, aren't you? And we needed to make sure everyone knows where to go for service during dinner." She brightened. "Look how beautiful Madison's card is. Thomas's family is very traditional, and we want to make the right impression." "Mom, I'm your daughter, not the catering staff," I said, still staring at the card. "I just made partner at my firm. I thought maybe we could celebrate that too." She patted my arm absently. "Oh yes, that's nice, dear. But tonight is about Madison. She's engaged. To a Fitzgerald. Can you imagine? Now, could you help Agnes bring out the first course?" I stood there, rooted to the spot, as the rest of the family filed in and found their seats. Madison sat in the place of honor, Thomas beside her, both of them looking like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Our father sat at the head of the table, already launching into one of his stories about Madison's childhood achievements. "Olivia," Mom's voice carried a warning tone. "The appetizers." Something inside me snapped. Years of being the reliable one, the helpful one, the invisible one. It all came crashing down in that moment. I picked up the kitchen help card, walked to the center of the table, and ripped it in half. The conversation stopped. All eyes turned to me. "Olivia," Mom gasped. "What are you doing?" "Making a point," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I'm not the help. I'm your daughter. I just made partner at Harrison and Schmidt. I'm the youngest partner in the firm's history. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Because you've been too busy planning Madison's engagement party to even ask about my life." Madison's face flushed. Way to make everything about yourself. Liv, this is my special night. Everything is your special night, Madison, I replied. My law school graduation. You announced your first job. My first big case win. You had just started dating Thomas. I've spent my entire life stepping aside so you could shine, helping in the kitchen so you could hold court in the dining room. But not anymore. Now, Olivia, Dad started, using his lecture voice, your sister has achieved something wonderful. We should all support her. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Support her? Like you supported me? Did you know I just bought a house? Or that I'm handling the biggest merger case in the firm's history? No, because in this family, there's only room for one daughter's achievements. Mom stood up, her face tight with anger. You're being ridiculous. If you can't be happy for your sister, maybe you should leave. You're right, I said, reaching for my bag. I should leave. But not because I can't be happy for Madison. I'm leaving because for once in my life, I want to be happy for myself. And clearly, I can't do that here. The silence in the room was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes on me as I walked toward the door, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Oh, and Mom. I turned back. You might want to call Ames for those appetizers. Your kitchen help is off duty. I walked out into the cold night air, got into my car, and drove away. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Texts from cousins, calls from aunts, voicemails from my parents. I ignored them all. Instead, I drove to my office. The building was quiet, most people home with their families for the holidays. I took the elevator to the 40th floor, where my name was freshly painted on the door. Olivia Morrison, partner. Sitting at my desk, looking out over the Boston skyline, I finally let myself feel everything, the hurt, the anger, the liberation. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. It was time to make some changes. The next morning, my assistant, Sarah, found me still at my desk, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. Olivia, she asked, concerned. Have you been here all night? I looked up, probably as exhausted as I felt, but smiling. Yes, and I've made some decisions. Remember that pro bono case we were considering? The one helping small business owners protect their intellectual property. She nodded. We're taking it. All of them. And I want to start a mentorship program for female law students from underprivileged backgrounds. Can you set up a meeting with HR? Sarah's eyes widened. That's a lot. What brought this on? I glanced at my phone, which showed 47 missed calls and messages. Let's just say I had a revelation about the importance of supporting others instead of diminishing them. Oh, and I need you to clear my schedule for New Year's Eve. I'm hosting a dinner party. A dinner party? Sarah looked surprised. I thought you always spent holidays with your family. I smiled, thinking about the elegant invitations I'd ordered at 3 a.m. Not anymore. I'm starting some new traditions. Speaking of which, could you call Agnes Morrison? I'd like to offer her a job. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of meetings and preparations. I was in the middle of reviewing the mentorship program proposal when my office door opened. It was Madison. She stood there awkwardly, still wearing yesterday's dress. You didn't come home last night? No, I agreed, not looking up from my papers. I didn't. Mom's upset. She thinks you ruined my engagement dinner. I finally looked at her. Is that what you think? Madison shifted uncomfortably. I think maybe we've all been taking you for granted. Dad told me about your partner promotion this morning. Why didn't you say anything? I did, I replied, multiple times. But there was always something more important going on with you. She had the grace to look embarrassed. I never meant. I didn't realize. That's the problem, Madison. You never had to realize anything. Everything was always arranged to put you in the spotlight. But that's not your fault. It's Mom and Dad's. And mine for allowing it for so long. So what happens now? She asked quietly. I handed her one of the invitations I had delivered that morning. Now I'm doing things differently. I'm hosting New Year's Eve dinner at my new house. Black tie, catered, and everyone serves themselves. Madison looked at the invitation, then back at me. Are Mom and Dad invited? That depends on them, I said. But if they come, it's as guests, not directors of the Olivia Morrison subordination show. A small smile tugged at her lips. You've changed. No, I corrected her. I just finally decided to be myself. As Madison left, I looked again at my new office door, had my name in bold letters. The kitchen help card might have been intended as an insult, but it had given me something invaluable, the push I needed to finally stand up for myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "We need to talk." I replied with 3 words. "Yes, we do." Then I turned back to my work. I had a mentorship program to launch, traditions to break, and a New Year's Eve dinner to plan. And this time, every place card would read exactly the same. Welcome. The days leading up to New Year's Eve were a blur of activity. My new house, a restored Victorian in Beacon Hill that I kept secret from my family, was finally ready for its debut. As I supervised the delivery of the dining table, a massive round piece that ensured no one would be seated at the head, I couldn't help but smile at how different this would be from my parents' hierarchical arrangements. My phone buzzed again. Mom had been calling daily since the holiday dinner incident, her messages alternating between guilt trips and demands for an explanation. Today's text read, "Olivia, your father and I raised you better than this. The silent treatment is childish." I let out a soft laugh. Apparently, giving me the silent treatment for my entire adult career had been perfectly fine, but 2 weeks of me not answering their calls was childish. "Where would you like the centerpieces, Ms. Morrison?" The florist's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Evenly spaced around the table," I replied, "and please call me Olivia." As I directed the final preparations, Agnes arrived, looking somewhat nervous in her new business attire. After quitting her job with my parents, she'd accepted my offer to become the office manager for our new mentorship program. "The place looks beautiful, Miss Olivia," she said, taking in the decorations. "Very different from your mother's style." "That's the idea," I said with a smile. "How are you settling into the new job?" "It's different," she admitted. "Your mother called me yesterday, tried to convince me to come back, offered to double my salary. And—" Agnes straightened her shoulders. "I told her I'd rather work with someone who sees me as a person, not a prop." I hugged her impulsively. "You're going to be amazing at this job, Agnes." "We both are." The doorbell rang, and my stomach tightened. I'd finally agreed to meet with my parents before the party, hoping we could clear the air. Agnes squeezed my hand before heading to the kitchen, leaving me to face them alone. They stood on my doorstep, looking uncomfortable and out of place. Mom's eyes darted around, clearly cataloging everything that didn't meet her standards. Dad just looked tired. "Well," Mom said, her voice tight, "this is interesting." "It's my home," I replied simply, stepping aside to let them in. "Would you like a tour?" They followed me through the house, Mom's lips pressing thinner with each room. Finally, we reached the dining room, where the round table stood ready for tonight's party. Round? Mom couldn't contain herself. "How will people know where to sit? Where's the head of the table?" "That's the point," I said. "There is no head of the table. Everyone's equal here." "Olivia," Dad finally spoke, "we understand you were upset about the holiday dinner, but isn't this all a bit excessive?" I turned to face them both. The holiday dinner wasn't the problem. It was just the final straw. "The problem is that, for my entire life, you've treated me like I was less than Madison. Less worthy, less important, less everything." "That's not true," Mom protested. "We love you both equally." "Really?" I pulled out my phone. "Let's review. Madison's college graduation, full family celebration, my law school graduation. You left early because Madison had a date. My first case win. You were too busy planning Madison's housewarming. Making partner. You didn't even hear me when I told you because you were too excited about Madison's engagement." "We were just trying to encourage your sister," Dad said weakly. "No, you were trying to create a hierarchy where one daughter always had to be less so the other could be more. But here's the thing, I'm not less. I never was. And I'm done pretending to be." Mom sank into one of the dining chairs, her perfect posture crumbling. "So what are you saying? You don't want to be part of the family anymore?" "I'm saying I want to be part of a family that values all its members, not just the ones who fit your perfect mold." Dad looked around the room, taking in the place cards that all simply read welcome, the equal spacing of the settings, the careful balance of everything. "The mentorship program you're starting," he said slowly. "Tell me about it." I blinked, surprised. It was the first time he ever asked about my work without immediately connecting it to Madison. So I told them. About the young women we'd be helping, about Agnes's new role, about my vision for creating opportunities for people who'd been overlooked. As I spoke, I saw something shift in their expressions. "You've really thought this through," Dad said when I finished. "I've had years of experience being the overlooked one," I replied. "I know exactly what needs to change." Mom stood up abruptly. "I should help Agnes in the kitchen." "No," I said firmly. "Agnes isn't the help anymore. She's a guest tonight, just like everyone else. If you want to stay for the party, you'll need to accept that things are different now." They exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Finally, Mom spoke. "We'll need to change for the party," she said stiffly. "What's the dress code?" "Black tie," I replied. "And Mom? Leave your calligraphy pens at home. The place cards stay as they are." After they left, I leaned against the wall, letting out a long breath. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The party began at 8. Guests arrived to find a house transformed, not just by decorations, but by purpose. My colleagues mingled with my relatives. Agnes chatted confidently with senior partners, and Madison, who arrived looking uncertain, found herself in an animated discussion with one of our new mentees. I watched from the sidelines as my two worlds collided and merged, creating something new and unexpected. My parents returned, dressed appropriately but still looking slightly lost without their usual roles to play. The moment of truth came when dinner was served. Everyone found their welcome cards and seats naturally, the round table encouraging conversation and connection. Mom opened her mouth as if to direct the seating arrangements but stopped herself when she caught my eye. As the evening progressed, I saw small but significant changes. Mom actually listened when one of my colleagues complimented my recent court victory. Dad asked Agnes about her new position without any condescension. And Madison, surprisingly, seemed to be thriving in an environment where she didn't have to be the center of attention. Near midnight, as everyone gathered for the countdown, Mom approached me. "This is not what I expected," she admitted. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Something angry. Something meant to punish us. But this," she gestured at the happy crowd. "This is about building something, isn't it?" I nodded. "I'm done tearing things down, Mom, including myself." She was quiet for a moment. "The place cards at Christmas. They were wrong. I was wrong." It wasn't quite an apology, but for my mother, it was seismic. The countdown began. As everyone cheered, "Happy New Year," I felt a profound sense of rightness. This was how change happened, not with grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but with small shifts, new traditions, and the courage to create spaces where everyone could thrive. The old year ended with me as kitchen help. The new one was beginning with me as exactly who I was meant to be, no more, no less, and finally, wonderfully enough. The impact of New Year's Eve rippled through the following months in ways I hadn't expected. My parents, while not completely transformed, began making noticeable efforts to change. The first sign came when Mom showed up at my office unannounced one February morning. "I brought lunch," she said, holding up a bag from my favorite deli. "If you have time." I did barely. The mentorship program was taking off, and my regular caseload hadn't gotten any lighter. But something in her expression made me clear my schedule. "Your father and I have been talking," she said as we sat in my office. "And we've been looking back at photos." She pulled out her phone and started scrolling. "This was your law school graduation. We left early because Madison had that date with the senator's son." She swiped again. "This was your first big case win. We barely acknowledged it because we were planning Madison's housewarming." "Mom," I started, but she held up her hand. "Let me finish." Each photo showed the same thing. You achieving something remarkable, and us looking the other way. When did we start doing that? When did we decide one daughter had to dim so the other could shine? I sat back, studying her face. I think it happened so gradually we all just accepted it as normal. "Even me." She nodded slowly. "I keep thinking about those place cards. Kitchen help. What kind of mother labels her own daughter that way?" "The kind who forgot she had two daughters to be proud of," I said quietly. Tears welled in her eyes, something I'd rarely seen. "I don't know how to fix this, Olivia." "You start by seeing me, Mom, really seeing me. Not as Madison's sister, not as the reliable one who helps in the kitchen, but as me." That lunch marked a turning point. Small changes began to appear. Mom started calling to ask about my cases. Dad began forwarding articles about women in law, actually engaging with my career. They weren't perfect. Old habits die hard. But they were trying. Madison, surprisingly, showed the most dramatic transformation. She showed up at one of our mentorship events in March, asking if she could volunteer. "I've been thinking a lot about that night," she said as we set up chairs. "About how it felt to not be the center of attention for once. It was freeing." I looked at her skeptically. "Freeing? You've spent your whole life being the star of every show." "Exactly," she sighed. "Do you know how exhausting that is? Always having to be perfect, always having to outshine everyone. I never asked for that role, Liv. Mom and Dad just put me in it, and I didn't know how to say no." It was a perspective I'd never considered, that being the golden child might have its own kind of prison. "What about Thomas?" I asked. "How's the wedding planning going?" She twisted her engagement ring nervously. We called it off, actually. After New Year's Eve, I realized something. I was marrying him because it was the kind of thing golden child Madison would do. But I don't want to be that person anymore. "Who do you want to be?" "I don't know yet," she admitted. "But I'd like to figure it out. Maybe you could help me." And so began another unexpected change. Madison started coming to the office regularly, not as a society princess, but as someone eager to learn and contribute. She had a natural talent for connecting with our mentees, sharing her own journey of breaking free from imposed expectations. The biggest test came in April when our family gathered for Easter. Mom had insisted on hosting, and I arrived braced for a regression to old patterns. Instead, I found something different. The dining room had been rearranged, with a round table. "Your father bought it last week," Mom said, watching my reaction. "He said it was time for a change." The place cards were simple, elegant, and equal. No hierarchies, no special designations, just names. "Agnes is coming," Mom added. "As a guest." I invited her properly this time. Throughout dinner, I watched my family navigate this new dynamic. Dad caught himself twice starting to tell Madison-centric stories, consciously shifting to include other perspectives. Mom actually listened when I talked about work, asking thoughtful questions instead of just waiting for a chance to redirect the conversation. But the real moment of truth came during dessert. I had news to share. I'd been offered a position as an adjunct professor at Boston University Law School, teaching a course on corporate law alongside my regular practice. In the old days, this announcement would have been overshadowed or dismissed. Instead, Mom stood up, raising her glass. "To Olivia," she said, her voice carrying genuine pride, "who has always shown us the power of quiet determination and who will now shape the next generation of lawyers. We are so proud of you, sweetheart." Madison caught my eye across the table and smiled, not her old, camera-ready smile, but something more real. After dinner, I found Dad in his study, looking at old family photos. "You know what I see now?" he said as I sat beside him. "All the moments we missed. All the times we could have celebrated both our daughters instead of creating this artificial competition." "We can't change the past, Dad." "No," he agreed. "But we can do better now." He pulled out an envelope. "Which is why your mother and I want you to have this." Inside was a check, a substantial one. "What is this?" "The money we should have given you when you made partner. The money we would have given you if we hadn't been so focused on funding Madison's life." I started to protest, but he stopped me. "Take it, not because you need it, you've proven you don't, but because it's a symbol of our recognition, of our respect, of our determination to do better." As I drove home at night, I thought about the journey of the past few months, from kitchen help to respected daughter, from overlooked to acknowledged, from silent to heard. It wasn't perfect, family never is, but it was real change. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Dinner next week. I need your advice about something." Then another from Mom. "So proud of you, Professor Morrison." And finally, one from Ames. "The mentorship program interviews went wonderfully today. You've started something amazing here." I smiled, thinking of that holiday card that had sparked it all. Sometimes the labels others put on us are just the beginning of our story. It's what we choose to do next that defines us. 1 year after the kitchen help incident, I stood in front of a packed lecture hall at Boston University Law School, delivering my final class of the semester. My course on corporate law had become unexpectedly popular, largely because I'd integrated real experiences from our mentorship program into the curriculum. "Remember," I told my students, "the law isn't just about precedents and procedures. It's about people, about creating spaces where everyone has a chance to succeed." As the students filed out, I noticed a familiar figure sitting in the back row. Mom had slipped in sometime during a lecture, trying to be inconspicuous, something the old Mrs. Morrison would never have done. That was impressive, she said, joining me at the podium. Very different from how your father teaches his business seminars. Well, I had a unique perspective on the importance of giving everyone a voice, I replied, gathering my materials. She winced slightly at the implied reference but nodded. You certainly did. Are you ready for tonight? Tonight, the 1-year anniversary of our New Year's Eve transformation and the official launch gala for the Morrison Women's Leadership Initiative, a foundation I created to expand our mentorship program nationally. The venue? Our family home. Almost, I said. Just need to stop by the office first. Want to come along? Mom's face lit up, another change from the past. She'd become genuinely interested in my work, often dropping by to help with the mentorship program or just to learn more about what I did. At the office, we found Madison deep in conversation with one of our mentees. My sister had found her calling as our program's outreach coordinator, using her natural networking skills to create opportunities for young women instead of just social connections. Mom, Liv, she called out, come meet Sarah. She just got accepted to law school. The pride in Madison's voice was genuine, no trace of the competitive edge that used to color all our interactions. She discovered that helping others shine didn't dim her own light. If anything, it made her glow brighter. As we celebrated Sarah's success, Agnes appeared in the doorway, now carrying herself with the confidence of someone who knew their worth. The caterers for tonight are all set, she reported. And Mr. Morrison called. He's finished setting up the scholarship display. The scholarship display had been Dad's idea, a wall in our family home dedicated to celebrating achievement in all its forms. Tonight, it would showcase the stories of our first-year mentees alongside family photos that now included everyone's moments of triumph. We should head home and get ready, Mom said, checking her watch. Olivia, will you help me with the place cards? I raised an eyebrow and she laughed. Don't worry, they all say the same thing. Welcome to our family. The transformation of our family home was stunning. The formal rigidity had been replaced with warm elegance. The round table concept had spread throughout the house, creating conversation nooks and gathering spaces where hierarchy gave way to connection. As guests began to arrive, mentees, mentors, family members, and supporters, I watched my parents work the room. Mom was in deep discussion with a group of law students, genuinely listening to their stories. Dad was showing potential donors the scholarship display, emphasizing the importance of supporting diverse voices. Madison, wearing a simple black dress instead of her old attention-grabbing styles, moved seamlessly between groups, making sure everyone felt included. She caught my eye and winked, her way of acknowledging how far we'd both come. When it was time for speeches, Dad stepped up first. A year ago, he began, our family learned a hard lesson about the cost of playing favorites and the damage that can be done by putting labels on people. But tonight isn't about that mistake, it's about what grew from it. He gestured to the room. Look around. Every person here has a story of being overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside. But thanks to the vision of my daughter Olivia and the transformation of my daughter Madison, those stories are changing. Mom joined him, her eyes bright with tears. The Morrison Women's Leadership Initiative isn't just about mentorship. It's about recognition, about seeing people for who they are, not who we think they should be. It's about making sure no one ever feels like they belong in the kitchen when they've earned a place at the table. As applause filled the room, Agnes appeared at my side. Your mother asked me to give you this, she said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a place card from that fateful holiday dinner, the kitchen help card I thought had been destroyed. But underneath it was another card, written in Mom's elegant calligraphy, Professor Olivia Morrison, founder and inspiration. Keep them both, Mom said softly, joining us. One to remember where we were, one to celebrate where we are. I hugged her tightly, feeling the last walls between us crumble. Later that night, as the party wound down, I found myself in the kitchen, by choice this time. Madison joined me, bringing 2 glasses and a bottle of wine. Remember when we used to fight over who got more attention? She asked, pouring. You always won, I reminded her. No, she shook her head. I just got more spotlight. You got stronger. Look at all this, Liv. You've created something amazing and you did it not because of the attention. but because it mattered. We clinked glasses, sisters instead of rivals, each comfortable in our own light. To labels, I said. And the people who transcend them, Madison finished. From the dining room, I could hear Mom showing off the new round table to guests, proudly explaining its significance. Dad was in his study, already working on plans to expand the scholarship program. The kitchen help card sat in my bag, no longer a symbol of exclusion, but a reminder of transformation. Sometimes the labels others put on us are just the beginning of our story. It's what we choose to do next. How we rise, how we grow, how we help others rise with us. That writes the ending. And this ending, it was better than anything I could have imagined when I first saw that card a year ago. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting better and bringing everyone along with you.